Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we're embarking on a documentary-style spatial tour of Turkey's magnificent industrial and historical heritage. I want you to just imagine gliding over the serene waters of Istanbul's Golden Horn. You've got centuries of Byzantine, Ottoman, and modern history just layered right on top of each other. And right down below, nestled right on the waterfront, are these historic dock buildings. They've been meticulously transformed into these absolutely breathtaking repositories of human ingenuity. We're going to look really closely at how these spaces preserve not just old objects, but the literal pulse of technological and societal evolution. Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our map for the journey ahead. First up, the Golden Horn's heritage. Then, marvels of the shipyard. Next, the evolution of global transport, followed by interactive and accessible history. And finally, a living industrial legacy.
Section 1. The Golden Horn's heritage.
Right off the bat, it's crucial to understand we aren't just looking at some modern building built to display old things. The buildings themselves are actual artifacts of continuous human industry. Take the primary building, the Lingerhane, which literally translates to anchor and chain house. It actually rests on 12th century Byzantine foundations and served as a massive Ottoman foundry. Then, just across the street, you've got the Haskoy shipyard, founded back in 1861 to build and repair those iconic Bosphorus passenger ferries. After decades of just sitting there in disuse, these sites were actually saved from ruin, beautifully restored, and reopened in 1994 as the Rahmi M Koç Museum.
But, how does a massive preservation effort like this even begin? Well, it actually started with something incredibly small. As this quote reveals, the founder, leading industrialist Rahmi M Koç traces his whole lifelong passion for mechanical engineering back to a tiny electrical Markland toy train that his dad, VB Koç, gave him. It's wild to think about, but that single childhood spark grew into a personal collection so vast that it literally filled up his homes and warehouses. And that ultimately culminated in Turkey's first and only major industrial museum.
Moving on to Section 2, Marvels of the Shipyard. The visual contrast we're looking at here is just spectacular. On the outside, you have the beautifully restored, highly elegant stone exterior of these 19th century buildings. But the moment you step inside the 1861 Haskoy shipyard, you are immediately confronted with the raw, heavy, imposing power of massive marine steam engines. Honestly, you can almost smell the greasy steam and hear the clanking metal of the Industrial Revolution making its way to the Ottoman Empire. It's a total sensory shift. And this brilliantly illustrates the intersection of royal power and maritime engineering on the Bosphorus. What you're seeing is a sovereignty kayak, a really long, narrow skiff completely unique to the area. Now, while regular kayaks were used all the time for passenger transport and fishing, this particular ornate vessel was used exclusively by the sultans for ceremonies and traveling to their summer palaces. All that rich, intricate ornamentation carved right into the wood, that wasn't just for show. It was a deliberate, floating symbol of the monarch's absolute power, just gliding across the water. But Turkey's naval preservation goes way beyond just the Ottoman era. We also have the colossal TCG Uluçali Reis, which is an actual World War II-era submarine that served the U.S. and then the Turkish Navy for decades before becoming a massive museum centerpiece. And that deep dedication to naval history is echoed across Turkey. You can see it with the highly revered TCG Nusret mine ship replica over at the Çanakkale Naval Museum. In fact, these preservation efforts are so dynamic right now that the Uluçali Reis is undergoing a full restoration, and it's set to serve as Turkey's very first dedicated submarine museum in the near future. How cool is that?
All right, Section 3. Evolution of global transport.
14,000. Think about that for a second. That is the sheer number of objects meticulously curated across the museum's 27,000 square meters. To put that into perspective, that's roughly the size of 4 whole soccer fields. It is a staggering scale of preservation. You really aren't just looking at isolated artifacts here. You're literally walking through a comprehensive timeline of human invention. Now, what's really interesting here is the incredible juxtaposition of scale. On one hand, we've got the micro level, the intricate, super precise gears of early mechanics, telegraph machines, and scientific instruments. And then we zoom way out to the macro beauty of classic automobiles. The museum houses everything from the 1898 Malden steam car, which represents some of the very earliest attempts at self-propelled mobility, all the way to the 1963 Anadolu, which was actually Turkey's very first mass-produced passenger car. The overall scope of transport history here is truly breathtaking. I mean, just consider this lineup. You've got the opulent 1867 carriage used by Sultan Abdulaziz for his historic tour of Paris and London. Then you have an original 1876 wooden carriage from the Tunnel, which, by the way, is the second oldest underground railway in the entire world, located right there in Istanbul. And from there, the artifacts scale straight up into the skies. We're talking a real Douglas DC-3 aircraft and a massive J-79 turbojet engine that actually once powered a starfighter jet. It's just this incredible, sweeping narrative of technological progress. Section 4. Interactive and Accessible History. Across Turkey's heritage sites, we're really seeing this beautiful shift towards making history accessible and inclusive. Because, preserving history only really matters if people can actually interact with it. At the Koç Museum, history is completely tactile. They run these great hands-on weekend workshops for kids and feature interactive cutaway models of dishwashers, car motors, and computers where you can actually see the internal mechanisms working. Meanwhile, at monumental historic sites like Dolmabahce Palace, comprehensive accessibility is a huge priority. They've seamlessly integrated wheelchair ramps and historic elevators so that visitors with limited mobility or just families with strollers can comfortably explore those grand imperial quarters. You can just see the absolute joy of discovery happening here. Museums like this, they're no longer just quiet, sterile halls with dusty "do not touch" signs slapped on glass cases. No way. They are living, slightly noisy, highly engaging spaces of learning. When a kid can just walk up, press a button, and watch an entire engine block rotate, those complex engineering concepts suddenly become easily understandable and, more importantly, incredibly fun. Let's move to and see how this builds into a truly inclusive step-by-step experience over at Dolmabahce Palace. They've mapped out a highly specific route. Step 1. A specially designed ramp grants level access right into the Selamlik's ground floor. Step 2. Trained staff are on hand to assist visitors into a beautifully preserved historic elevator. And Step 3. This elevator takes visitors directly to the upper floor, providing completely unobstructed, magnificent views of the famous crystal staircase and ceremonial hall. It's a really powerful statement that this heritage absolutely belongs to everyone. Which brings us to Section 5, a living industrial legacy. So imagine stepping out of the museum after a really long, fascinating day of historical exploration. You are immediately greeted by the peaceful Haskoy waterfront. You sit down at a local cafe, you can hear the water of the Golden Horn gently lapping nearby, and you're served a hot, traditional Turkish tea. It's this wonderful sensory narrative that directly connects the heavy, clanking industry of the past with the tranquil, enduring rhythm of Istanbul's daily life today. So, the crucial point is this. Industrial archaeology offers us a genuinely democratic view of history. While grand palaces are amazing and tell the stories of sultans and royalty, preserving a foundry and a shipyard honors the everyday engineers, the mechanics, and the workers. It celebrates the sheer technical progress that fundamentally fueled the growth of the city and modernized the entire region. It's about the people who built the future. Let's take a second to just absorb the beauty of this single, iconic artifact, the 1898 Malden steam car. Just look at the brass fittings, the exposed mechanics, the sheer, unadulterated ambition of early engineering. It stands as a really quiet testament to a time when the world was rapidly accelerating into the future, built entirely by hands that dared to innovate. As the sun sets over the Golden Horn and the lights of the museum complex begin to twinkle, we are left with a really vital question to ponder. How exactly does understanding our industrial past shape our technological future? I mean, when we see the leap from a steam-powered car to a turbojet engine, we have to wonder what the next century of human ingenuity is going to look like. Thank you so much for joining me on this spatial tour. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.